Hello students, welcome to the Hindu News Analysis by Baji IAS Academy. Today we will discuss some of the most important and relevant news articles for state PSC examination as well as UPSC examination. See, before actually discussing these important news articles, please subscribe to the Bajirao IAS Academy YouTube channel so that you will get all the important updates regarding the classes, because we are also coming up with new initiatives and that will benefit you in your preparation, right? So these are the some of the most important and relevant news articles. The first important news article is China will want to make India US ties costly. Okay, so this is very important as part of paper 2. Okay, for paper 2 international relations section, this article is very important because in recent past China has becoming more assertive and aggressive, and in recent past, you can also observe India is moving closer to US and the rest of the West. So in this context, it is important to understand this article. Okay, the next very important news article is recent rain likely to expand cotton farming in the north. Okay, so this is also very important. So as part of this article, we will try and understand what are the favorable conditions required for the cotton cultivation, and also along with that the soils which are more favorable for the cotton cultivation. And the FDA approves first vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus. Okay, respiratory syncytial virus. So as part of this article, we'll try and understand what is respiratory syncytial virus. What is respiratory syncytial virus, and who are the most vulnerable groups, population groups, and this respiratory syncytial virus will infect, and what difference it makes when we develop such a vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus. Next article is early diagnosis treatment of diabetes in pregnant women benefits infants. This is a finding from a particular study. Okay, so when we are able to diagnose or treatment or provide treatment to diabetes, particularly in pregnant women, that would reduce the mortality or any birth related complications during pregnancy. Okay, and the next important article is scientists identify mutations in DNA for early diagnosis of drug resistant bacteria for tuberculosis. See, for tuberculosis, the bacteria has been developing resistance. Okay, when the bacteria has been developing resistance, it is very important for us to understand or diagnose the TB much early as possible so that effective treatment could be provided. So in this context also, we will try and understand what is TB and what is resistance being developed to TB drugs. Okay, so the last article is proposed oil refinery project leaves villages in Konkan belt fuming. So there was an issue of oil refinery in Konkan belt on Maharashtra or in Maharashtra. Okay, so it is also very important to understand why the people in the Konkan belt are protesting against such an oil refinery. What is the ecological and environmental significance of this project? So the first important news article is China will want to make India US ties costly. See, as part of this article, we will try and understand the Chinese recent past moves, that is mediation between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and even China has come up with a global civilization initiative and global security initiative. Okay, global security initiative, particularly after the post COVID world order. Okay, particularly after the post COVID world order, China has been trying to increase its soft power or increase its influence across the world. So, as part of this, China has been coming up with several such initiatives. Okay, whether it is mediating between Russia and Saudi Arabia to increase its influence in the Middle East or to limit the influence of India, and also increasing its naval presence in the Indian Ocean region to contain the or to reduce the influence of India in the Indian Ocean region. So all these factors pointing towards Chinese assertiveness and aggressiveness in the region. So now let's try and understand this article. See, all the facts which are mentioned in this article are not very important. I have sorted all the important and relevant points in this article. Okay, you just follow these points because these points are particularly very relevant for exam. Okay, so uh, in the month of October last year, there was a Chinese party congress. Okay, there was a Chinese party's congress, and followed by the Chinese party congress, there was protests around the country. Okay, there was a protest around the country because of different reasons, whether it is about the zero COVID policy, where the Chinese government wanted to contain the COVID-19 new cases. Okay, because it has significantly impacted its economy or crippled its economy. So therefore China followed a zero COVID policy, and China has also cracked down on real estate sector. So therefore there were a serious protests around the country in November. And apart from this, there was a sudden withdrawal of the zero COVID policy. Why China suddenly withdrawn the zero COVID policy? Because wide-ranging protests against the zero COVID policy and the continuous and prolonged lockdowns in China. So all these factors have been led to the China withdrawing its zero COVID policy. Okay, uh, you may get the question in the examination: zero COVID policy is followed by which country? Okay, zero COVID policy is followed by which country, and it is related to China or it is followed by China. Okay, now despite all these setbacks, the Chinese Communist Party, which is ruling China, okay, this Chinese Communist Party is looking to correct its course or course correct, looking to course correct. So, why it has been looking to course correct, particularly after the pandemic, okay, particularly after the pandemic, the Chinese influence has been on decline. Okay, the Chinese influence on decline, so therefore it wanted to increase its influence beyond, okay, beyond its borders. So therefore they are trying to course correct whatever has happened in China. So Chinese economy has affected severely due to the zero COVID policy which was followed in China. And also China adopted a real estate crackdown. Okay, real estate crackdown in China, it is particularly because of the corruption related issues. So China adopted zero COVID policy, and China has also followed the real estate crackdown. Okay, however, apart from these challenges, China has also been facing a poor relationship with many key powers. Okay, it has also been facing poor relationship, whether it is with respect to West, okay, whether it is respect to West, Southeast Asia, particularly on South China Sea issue, whether it respect to Australia, and even in Middle East also, it has it has a normal relation. Okay, it has a very normal relationship with countries in the Middle East. Okay, so therefore Therefore, therefore China has been looking for course correct. Okay, course correct, so that it could it could work on those issues. It could improve its relationship with all these countries, whether it is with respect to West, okay, whether it is with respect to the Middle East or with Southeast Asia. This is particularly evident from the fact that recently France President Emmanuel Macron, France President Emmanuel Macron also had a visit to China. Okay, he also had a visit to China, and China is also successfully brokered a deal between rivals, that is Iran and Saudi Arabia. Okay, so all these factors have been pointing that the Chinese influence or the Chinese influence has been increasing, and apart from that, China has also trying to improve its relations with key powers. Okay, key powers in different regions. Now understand, the Chinese economy is now doing better. Okay, the Chinese economy is now doing better because see, understand, China is primarily an export driven market. Okay, it is primarily an export driven market. So since the COVID-19 pandemic has been disappearing fast, the global markets are opening up. The Chinese economy has also been doing better. Okay, so Chinese President Xi Jinping launched several global initiatives. We already discussed the global initiatives. What are the global initiatives? They include Global Security Initiative, Global Civilizational Initiative. Okay, he launched several such initiatives, and these initiatives aimed at improving China's reputation. Okay, improving China's reputation across the globe. However, what these changes we have discussed, the setbacks China have faced, and the Chinese are being looking to course correct, and the initiatives China has been undertaken. So all these changes uh, have been telling us that it's dangerous to predict the future of China. It is not easy to predict the future of China based on the current trends. Okay, however, in recent past, you can see a flurry of diplomatic activity. Okay, so that has emanated from Beijing. Okay, so because Xi Jinping, this is the third term for Xi Jinping. Okay, for Xi Jinping, this is the third term. So even after the third term, there is a flurry of diplomatic activity from Beijing, right from the new global civilization initiative to global security initiative, and successfully brokering the Iran and Saudi Arabia deal in order to increase its geostrategic and geopolitical space in the Middle East and further limit major powers like India and USA in the region. Okay, so all these factors have been, uh, you know, a major driving force. Th- this indicates that a flurry of diplomatic activity from the Chinese side. Okay, so there were many initiatives. We have discussed several such initiatives, and all these initiatives intended to improve Beijing relations with global south. Okay, what is a global south? We yesterday also we have you know mentioned global south. Global south is includes countries, poor, underdeveloped, developing countries in South America, Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. Okay, so countries in these areas or these regions are called as global south. Traditionally, India is known as the leader of the global south, or the voice of global south. Okay, voice of global south. Now, uh, not these initiatives intended to improve intended to improve China's relations, not just with global south, but with Europe also and Russia also, because in recent past there has been an increasing or strengthening competition with USA. Okay, so all these factors have been making China more assertive, more aggressive in the recent past. So now it is important for us to understand US China relations as well. Okay, so it says that China and US on their part, they believe that they're trying to change the status quo on uh, Taiwan state. Okay, they're trying to change the status quo on the Taiwan state. We know that uh, China follows the one China policy. Okay, China believes in one China policy. So, what is one China policy? All those countries which have diplomatic ties with China should not recognize Taiwan as a separate nation. Okay, they should not recognize Taiwan as a separate nation, or they should recognize that Taiwan is also part of China. Okay, so this is one China policy. UPSC already asked this question in prelims examination. So therefore, you have to remember this. Okay. So therefore, both US and China, they themselves believe that they are trying to change the status quo on the Taiwan state, which could emerge as a major challenge. Okay, global security, because we already seeing the negative impacts of Russia Ukraine war. Okay, we already seen the negative impacts of Russia Ukraine war on food security and also energy security. Okay, so in this context, this will pose a biggest challenge because there will be a military confrontation between the largest military powers or military superpowers or the economic superpowers. However, despite such a huge challenge, these two countries, both China and USA, have tried to prevent escalation of tensions between these two countries. Okay, they have tried to reduce the deterioration of ties between these two countries. However, the competition, the geostrategic, geopolitical competition has been further intensifying between USA and China. Okay, because now China has emerged as a more assertive, aggressive, status quoist power. It has been, in fact, it is challenging US's hegemony in different regions. So therefore, there is a competition between USA and China, and that is further intensifying. Now, China is particularly concerned because India day by day moving closer India day by day moving closer to US, and that is particularly concern for China. Okay, that is particularly concern for China. So therefore, the author has been saying that China would look to make India's US ties more costly. Okay, India's US ties more costly. That means India's ties with US will not result in significant benefits for India, or it will not be a significant advantage for India, because China has been building China has been building its ties with Pakistan. Okay, it ties with Pakistan. It has been supplying. It has been assisting Pakistan militarily, and it has also been influencing India's neighbors. Okay, through debt trap diplomacy. So therefore, all these factors will further impact India's ties with US, and it says that India's ties with US will prove more costly for India. So that is what China is looking for. So this is all about this article. So the next very important news article is USA's Food and Drug Administration. Okay, USA's Food and Drug Administration approves the first vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus. Okay, respiratory syncytial virus. So before actually discussing what is a respiratory syncytial virus, first we have to understand this. Okay, we try and understand this. So a respiratory syncytial virus infection, so it spreads easily through contact with infected droplets of saliva or mucus. It is like a normal a flu or normal cold. So therefore it also spreads through a contact with an infected person through droplets or saliva or mucus. So there are higher risk people and also lower risk people for any disease. Okay, for any disease. So who are at higher risk? The young children, especially babies younger than 1 year. Okay, because they have a very weak immune system. Since they have a very weak immune system, so they are particularly vulnerable to this disease, respiratory syncytial virus. Now, symptoms begin 3 to 7 days after the exposure, and the symptoms of this respiratory syncytial virus include mild fever, runny nose or nasal congestion, chest congestion, wheezing, difficulty in breathing, and cough. So, these are normal and general symptoms of this RSV virus. However, treatment, when it comes to treatment, there is no specific treatment is available for this RSV infection. Since there is no specific treatment is available for RSV virus, the FDA has approved the vaccine. The FDA has approved a vaccine for RSV virus or RSV infection. Okay, so the symptoms usually improve within 1 or 2 weeks. Antibiotics are not helpful for RSV infections. Okay, so generally for viruses, antibiotics generally don't work. Okay, antibiotics generally don't work. Since antibiotics don't work for the respiratory syncytial virus, there is a need for vaccine so that we could be able to protect the young children and also reduce the infant mortality rate. Okay, now the medication to relieve fever or treat other symptoms such as wheezing. Fluids can be administered if a person is infected. Now, how could we prevent this respiratory syncytial virus infection? There are several methods through which we could prevent the respiratory syncytial virus. One is cover, cough, and sneeze. Second, wash frequently. In India, we have an initiative called Wash Initiative. Okay, so WASH initiative was also widely popularized during the COVID-19 pandemic times also. Okay, so just remember the WASH initiative. Now, apart from this, do not share sharing cups or utensils, avoiding contact with people who have cold. So these are some, preventive steps or preventive measures. Now, apart from this, the respiratory syncytial virus is just a common respiratory pathogen. Okay, just like a normal flu or normal cold, it is a common respiratory pathogen because it is so common that because all of us there are chances that all of us are getting infected with this virus, and many of us even don't know whether we infected this virus or not. For the vast majority of the people, this virus causes mild disease. Okay, this virus causes a very mild disease, and this disease symptoms include heavy cold with a runny nose and cough. We already discussed the symptoms of this disease, and these symptoms include heavy cold with runny nose and cough, and these symptoms normally resolve without treatment within 1 or 2 weeks. Okay, so without you when receive the treatment, the symptoms can be relieved. Okay, however, the problem is one in three children can cause bronchiolitis. Okay, can cause bronchiolitis, the respiratory syncytial virus. Okay, so what is a bronchiolitis? A bronchiolitis is inflammation of bronchioles. Okay, this is just an inflammation of bronchioles. The bronchioles are a smallest tubes in our lungs. Okay, they are tubes in our lungs, and they will be inflamed or inflammation of such inflammation of bronchioles. Okay, so when the bronchioles are inflamed or inflamed, that will restrict the airways, and patients experience raised temperatures and difficulty in breathing, often making wheezing sound when drawing air. Okay, so it makes breathing very difficult, and that will lead to the death, whether it is the old age people with comorbidities, or either with the people, either with the children under one age. So there is a possibility of high infant mortality rate, and also there is a possibility of a higher death rate with person who are with comorbidities. Now understand this article. The Food and Drug Administration has approved first vaccine. Okay, first vaccine ARX5. Okay, the vaccine name is ARX Y. Okay, so this is actually for the respiratory syncytial virus. Please remember ARXY for respiratory syncytial virus, and it is being approved by the Food and Drug Administration, and ARXY is the first vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus. Okay, so uh, this is particularly to lower the respiratory tract disease. Okay, this vaccine will lower the respiratory tract disease in people older than 60 years. So this vaccine particularly made with the aim of reducing the lower respiratory tract disease among people over 60 years of age. Okay, so however, in the entire world, this is the ARXY is the first vaccine approved for respiratory syncytial virus. This vaccine is manufactured by the GSK company. Okay, company GSK. The name of the company is GSK, and the Food and Drug Administration has approved this vaccine. Okay, Food and Drug Administration approved this vaccine after conducting extensive clinical trials over the vaccine. Okay, so after the clinical trials have been completed, this vaccine has been approved by the Food and Drug Administration of USA. However, it is said that who after the administration of the vaccine, the risk it reduces the risk of getting infected with this virus is reduced to 94.1 percentage. Okay, it is getting reduced to 94.1%. So therefore this vaccine is very effective for reducing the lower respiratory tract diseases. Okay, now, there is a very high morbidity among people with comorbidities, especially people who are aged 60 years, especially people who are aged above 60 years. Okay, because the lower respiratory tract disease caused by the RSV virus leads to approximately 60,000 to 1,20,000 hospitalizations every year. And out of 60,000 to 1,20,000 hospitalization, around there will be 6,000 to 10,000 deaths annually. And this is particularly among the adults who are aged above 65 years with comorbidities. Okay, so this RSV virus significantly affects the older people with the comorbidities. Comorbidities or any diseases, non-communicable diseases, communicable diseases, and that particularly reduces their immune system response. That particularly reduces their immune system response. Okay, so there is a possibility that there is a high morbidity among the adults who are with the comorbidities. So this is similarly like a common cold. It usually causes a mild symptoms. Okay, so it usually causes a mild symptoms but can turn deadly if it infects older people. Okay, uh, because older people generally do not have, you know, enough immune response to tackle such a disease or such an infection. So therefore there is a, you know, it can turn deadly for older people with ages above 65 years. Okay, so therefore, this is a significant in terms of developing a vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus, and that do not have any vaccine as of now, and that will help reduce the mortality rate, the especially the infant mortality rate and the morbidity among the adults with age above the 65 years of age. Now, apart from GSK, two other vaccine candidates are also being developed by Pfizer and Moderna. Okay, Pfizer and Moderna have also been developing such vaccines for respiratory syncytial virus. However, still they are in the phase of clinical trials. Okay, still they are in the phase of clinical trials. So what happens during clinical trials? During clinical trials, the efficacy or the efficiency of such a vaccine will be tested. Okay, it will be tested extensively. Either any shortcomings or any negative effects of such vaccine on the people will be properly studied, so that the most effective vaccine will be released and it will not pose any public health risk to the people. Okay, so this is all about the respiratory syncytial virus and the AREX V. So this is actually the vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus. Now understand the next important news article is recent rain likely to expand cotton farming in the north. Okay, so the cotton growing areas, the cotton growing states in northern India include Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan. Okay, so these are the major states, the cotton growing states in northern India. However, in recent past, you can experience rains and cool weather, cool weather in the northern belt. Okay, so this will further increase the cultivation of cotton. There is a possibility that farmers will shift from the uh, cultivation of pulses and cereals to cotton cultivation, because cotton will give more profits, and so that the farmers will shift to the cultivation of cotton, and the environment and climate is also supporting the cotton cultivation as of now. Now, agriculture experts have been predicting that there will be an increase in the acreage of cotton plantation this year. Okay, so there will be an increase in the cotton plantation uh, in terms of acreage this year. This is particularly because of the untimely rain. Okay, this is particularly with respect to the untimely rain in the northern areas or the northern states. Please remember, cotton is a kharif crop. Okay, cotton is a kharif crop. Okay, so there are three cropping seasons. I hope everyone know about the cropping seasons. One is kharif, and second is rabi, and third is jaid. Okay, so this is a very short cropping season. In this season, farmers cultivate watermelon, vegetables, and there are few rabi crops and kharif crops as well. Now, Kharif season generally spans from June to September. Okay, June to September. Now, please understand, cotton is a Kharif crop. Cotton is a Kharif crop. So, the government has targeted that in Haryana itself, 7 lakh hectares targeted cotton cultivation. Okay, in Haryana. And in Punjab also, the government targeted that there should be 3 lakh hectares of cotton cultivation. Okay, so apart from that, the recent rains will help the government and the farmers, will help the government to meet these targets. Okay, this target of 7 lakh hectares of cultivation, sowing cotton in the state of Haryana, and 3 lakh hectares of uh, cotton sowing in the state of Punjab. And this rain is a good sign, as it will prevent the problem of burning. Okay, this will prevent the problem of burning in cotton due to high temperatures. If there are high temperatures, uh, because in April and May months there is high temperatures, and that will lead to burning within the cotton crop. Okay, since there is no high temperatures in these months, and there is also untimely rains, and that will prevent the problem of burning. Okay, that will prevent the burden of burning, or the problem of burning. Now, last year, this time, the farmers have seen a substantial loss in cotton acreage. This is particularly because of the burning problem. This is particularly because of burning problem. Farmers have seen significant losses. The rain will help in pacing up the sowing, especially in those regions. Okay, the untimely rain will help farmers sow more and more cotton in these areas, particularly in the areas which lack irrigation facilities, because the untimely rain also brought the irrigation to the cotton sowing. Okay, so therefore, even in lack of irrigation facility areas, cotton will be cultivated. Now, the government and the agricultural experts are hopeful that the area under cotton would surpass the last year's acreage, as the government is sowing the water guzzling crops. So, what are the water guzzling crops? Or the water intensive crops? Crops which use excess water. Okay, crops which use excess water are called as water guzzling crops. Okay, they are known as water guzzling crops. So therefore, since the government has been trying to make, trying to transform the farming from water guzzling crops to less water intensive crops, and government has also been trying to diversify crops, diversify agriculture, cotton will be given, a priority. Okay, crop diversification, and government is also discouraging the water guzzling crops. What are the water guzzling crops? Water guzzling crops are normally rice, wheat, sugarcane, sugarcane. So these are generally uh, water intensive crops and water guzzling crops. Okay. So apart from this, we have to understand the BT cotton. In Punjab and Haryana, these states together account for 95% of BT cotton. Okay, these two states together account for 95% of total area under cotton cultivation. Okay, especially the BT cotton cultivation, and remaining 5% of the cultivable area used for indigenous cotton varieties. Okay, there are also the indigenous cotton varieties, and 95% of the total cotton is from the BT cotton variety, and 5% of the cultivable area uses the indigenous cotton varieties. And cotton is usually planted from mid-April to late May. So the plantation of cotton generally starts from mid-April to late May in most parts of Punjab and Haryana. Okay, so this year the experts have been hoping that the acreage under the uh, you know uh, cotton will further increase because of this untimely rain or favorable climatic conditions. In Haryana and Rajasthan, farmers are likely to shift cotton from crops like gawar, this is also called as cluster bean, and pulses. Okay, so there is highly likely that farmers will shift from the crops such as gowar and moong to cotton. Okay, moong to cotton. So this will, because cotton is expected to fetch more prices for the farmers. Okay, cotton is expected to fetch more prices for the farmers. So we'll try and understand some of the ideal conditions. Okay, we try and understand the ideal conditions required for the cotton cultivation. There is a requirement of high temperatures, ideally around 30 degrees Celsius, and long vegetation period, and there should be ample sunshine and dry climate, and minimum 500 millimeters of rainfall and irrigation. Ideal soil conditions: deep soil. Please remember, cotton is generally cultivated in black soils. Okay, cotton is generally cultivated in black soils, and the cotton concentration is majorly in the states of Gujarat. Okay, in the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, okay, Maharashtra, and parts of Telangana, Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh. There is a high cotton cultivation because of the presence of black soil. Okay, black soil favors the growth of cotton. And deep clay soils, ideally black cotton soils. And there is no water logging. There should be no water logging. Okay. Now, please also understand the genetically modified crops, because this article also contains the BT cotton. Okay, this article also contains details about the BT cotton. So in this backdrop, it is very important for us to understand the GM crops. Okay, GM crops in India. So what is a GM crop? So a crop which has a gene, and that gene is artificially inserted it from another species. Okay, for example, there is a cotton plant. Okay, there is a cotton plant, and it is not resistant to any pest. Okay, it is not resistant to pest. So when it is not resistant to pest, there is a possibility that a gene would be taken out. Okay, a gene would be taken out either from a plant or animal or any other microorganism, and this gene has the capability or resistance to this pest, and this gene will be introduced into the cotton. Okay, this is called as genetically modified crop. Okay, this is called as genetically modified plant, because now this plant, this cotton plant has a gene. an alien gene from another plant or animal from the microorganism, and that is now able to resist the pest which has been infecting the cotton plant. Okay, so gene artificially inserted it from another species, even maybe it is unrelated or to give some desired properties. Okay, so maybe it is particularly completely unrelated or it is introduced with give desired properties. And GM crops are mostly either pest resistant or herbicide tolerant. Now bt cotton is also pest resistant to bollworm disease. Okay, pest resistant to bollworm disease. So therefore, most of the genetically modified crops are either pest resistant or herbicide tolerant, so that they are able to withstand the tough conditions and they will give a good yield, okay, better yield, and that will ensure profits for the farmers. Okay, so what what is the scenario of genetically modified crops in India? So as of now, the government has not approved the commercial cultivation of genetically modified crops. Government has so far not approved the commercial scale cultivation of genetically modified crops, even though there were efforts have been made for brinjal and mustard. Even though there were efforts made for brinjal and mustard. Why? Because of health, because of public health related concerns. Maybe the food, maybe the food would bring in undesirable changes in the genetic makeup or genetic structure of the people. The government has so far not given approval for the bt, brinjal and mustard. However, when it comes to the bt cotton, okay, when it comes to bt cotton, this is also a genetically modified crop. So the first GM crop variety approved for commercialization was bt cotton. Okay, this was actually the bt cotton. See, please remember in the year 2021, UPSC also asked about Bolegard 1 and Bolegard 2. So therefore, you have to remember this. Bolegard 1, which provided immunity against the pink bollworm. Okay, so it provided immunity against the pink bollworm disease, and it is developed by a company called Monsanto. Okay, it is developed by a company called Monsanto, and that has introduced the Bolegard 1, and that is resistant to pink bollworm. However, so Monsanto released Bolegard 1. Okay, Monsanto also released Bolegard 1 in the year 2006. Now, India has become the largest producer of cotton. Okay, now India has emerged as the largest producer of cotton, particularly because of introduction of BT cotton. So, after the introduction of BT cotton, the productivity levels have been significantly increased. The productivity levels have been significantly increased. Because of this, India is now is known as, known for the largest cotton cultivation or largest cotton producer, now which accounts for 90% of the total cotton acreage in the country. Okay, bt cotton contributes around 90 percentage of total cotton acreage. Okay, this is all about genetically modified crops and about bt cotton. So the next very important news article is about the early diagnosis and treatment of diabetes in pregnant women benefit infants. Okay, so this is with respect to the gestational diabetes mellitus. Okay, this is actually a disease and that infects the pregnant woman. Okay, so if gestational diabetes mellitus infect the pregnant woman, that will lead to the complications. Okay, complications during the birth, and that will also impact the infants. Okay, so there is a possibility that the high mortality rate, the high infant mortality rate among the infants. So therefore, uh, early diagnosis and treatment of diabetes in pregnant women benefits infants. Okay, this is according to a study. Okay, now if we diagnose this gestational diabetes mellitus early, and that will provide additional protection. Okay, that will provide additional protection for babies and mothers from the pregnancy related complications. So this gestational diabetes mellitus is actually a form of diabetes. Okay, we already have several people who are infected with the diabetes. Okay, now gestational diabetes mellitus is a form of diabetes and which first diagnosed during pregnancy, and this is actually diagnosed during the pregnancy. Now, a recent study conducted on the gestational diabetes mellitus. So, what this study has revealed? Okay, what this study has revealed? This study actually assessed pregnancy outcomes with initiation of treatment for gestational. So it actually assessed the gestational diabetes mellitus before 20 weeks. So before 20 weeks, diagnosis before 20 weeks of pregnancy, and diagnosis or treatment after 24 to 28 weeks of gestation. Okay, 24 to 28 weeks of gestation. So this study says that pregnant woman with the gestational diabetes mellitus, if diagnosed before 20 years of pregnancy or 20 weeks of gestation, before 20 weeks of gestation, there is a possibility that the treatment, effective treatment could be provided. Okay, effective treatment could be provided for pregnant women, and that will reduce the complications, that will reduce the birth related complications. However, the currently time given for the diagnosis and treatment of for this gestational diabetes mellitus is 24 to 28. Now, if the time period is too much, there is a possibility that there will be higher birth related complications if the diagnosis and treatment is provided after 24 to 28 weeks. Okay, so this therefore this study gives an impetus that uh, you have to we have to diagnose and treat pregnant woman for this particular disease, gestational diabetes disease, before 20 weeks, and that will significantly reduce the birth related complications. Okay, however, over 1 in 20 babies avoided a group of severe birth complications. Now, if this diagnosis and treatment provided before 20 years, and that has resulted in avoiding a group of birth related complications, and they include uh, broken bones, broken nerves, getting stuck during birth. Okay, the neck getting stuck during the birth. So all these problems are avoided. All these problems are avoided if the treatment is provided before 20 weeks for a woman, a pregnant woman who is infected with the gestational diabetes mellitus. So in addition to this, the breathing problems requiring oxygen were almost halved, and number of days needed for neonatal intensive care special care unit was also reduced 40 percentage if diagnosis and treatment is provided for pregnant women for the gestational diabetes mellitus disease before 20 weeks. Okay, so this study will help in earlier diagnosis. Okay, they will be in earlier diagnosis and management of this gdm infection or the gdm disease, and which today affects 25 percentage. Okay, at least one, sorry, at least one in four, at least one in four pregnant women, they are infected with gestational diabetes mellitus. Okay, they are infected with the gestational diabetes mellitus, and this new study will help reduce the birth related complications, at least because it has been infecting at least 25 percentage of women. Okay, the next important news article is about TB. Okay, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis. This tuberculosis disease is actually caused by the mycobacterium. It is actually caused by mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay, this is caused by mycobacterium tuberculosis. This is a bacteria. Okay, so it spreads through air and is breathed into lungs. So when you come in contact with an infected person, a TB infected person, and when you inhale the droplets, and that will lead to the spread of the TB infection. Okay, that will lead to the spread of TB infection. Some facts related to TB include TB kills around 2 million people a year. So you can understand the scale of, the severity of the TB disease. There is a very high mortality rate. Every year, at least 2 million, that is 20 lakh people die. 20 lakh people die because of TB infection. So therefore, you know, diagnosis and treatment occupies a higher priority for TB. Okay, so this number is very high, particularly in poor countries, because they lack access to medicines. Okay, these countries lack access to medicines. Because of that reason, there is a high mortality rate. Now, please understand, tuberculosis is not a untreatable disease. In fact, TB is a treatable disease. It is in fact a treatable disease. It can be treated. However, the drug resistance being developed by the TB bacteria, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria. So, what is a drug resistance? What is drug resistance? It is important to understand drug resistance, right? So, when a person is infected with a disease, when a person is infected with a particular disease, uh, he'll take medicine. Okay, he'll take medicine for the disease, and when the bacteria develops resistance to such a medicine, even after taking medicine, it will not be effective. Okay, it will not be effective. Even after taking so much medicine, the medicine will not have any impact or effect on the bacteria, and the disease continues to prevail. Okay, so therefore, over a period of time, the TB bacterium has been developing drug resistance. Even though this disease is treatable, but because of drug resistance, there is a high infection rate, high mortality rate as well, and this has become a major public health concern, and this is further exacerbated by the emergence of multi and extensively drug resistant TB. So there is an emergence of multi drug resistant TB, and also the extra or extreme uh, extensively drug resistant tuberculosis. Okay, extensively drug resistant tuberculosis, because uh, this is according to the World Health Organization. According to the World Health Organization facts, the bacteria, the MDR-TB bacteria with the World Health Organization, and the figure is around 0.39 million. Okay, around 0.39 million people have been infected with XDR-TB. Okay, so what is XDR-TB? XDR-TB is extensively drug resistant TB. Now, if long treatment, higher toxicity, and costly drug treatment make the MDR, extensively drug resistant TB, a challenging to treat. So both MDR, why both MDR and XDR TB a challenge? Okay, challenge to treat because of several reasons. The reasons include a long treatment. When there is a long treatment periods, the patient continues to have medicine for a longer period of time. Okay, that is one reason. And higher drug toxicity and costly drug treatment make the MDR and extensively drug resistant TB a challenge to treat. Okay, this is particularly with respect to the TB disease. However, scientists have identified mutations in DNA. Okay, scientists have identified mutations in DNA, and that mutations, if a person is infected with TB, if a person is infected with TB, and that person's genetic makeup, that person's genome structure would see mutations, and that mutations will help us. That mutations will help us detect or diagnose TB early. When we are able to diagnose TB early, the treatment would be provided. The treatment would be provided as early as possible, so that when treatment is provided on time readily, then the mortality rates or the morbidity rates would be further reduced, and the goal of eliminating TB would be possible. Okay, if so, this is scientists from Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology. So they have identified these mutations in our DNA. Okay, so these mutations will particularly help us understand or diagnose the TB disease. Therefore, adequate steps could be taken to prevent or to eliminate the TB disease. Okay, so the study identified the compromised DNA repair as one of the novel mechanisms for evolution of drug resistance. Okay, so drug resistance is a major feature in this Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Because of the drug resistance, even if we administer medicine, that medicine turned out to be ineffective. And this mutations will help us understand, the evolution and the drug resistance being developed in the bacteria. Now, understand the drug resistant TB. So, it is a dangerous variant of tuberculosis TB bacteria. So extensively, this is XDR TB. Okay, this is XDR. Please remember XDR TB and multi-drug resistant TB. So the XDR TB is resistant to two most powerful anti-TB drugs. Okay, so there are two most powerful anti-TB drugs, and this is resistant to these anti-TB drugs. Okay, and secondly, resistant to three or more of six classes second line drugs. The XDR-TB is resistant to drugs, and it is first described in the year 2006 after the outbreak of South African town of Turgela Ferry. So more than 5,000 cases reported worldwide so far related to XDR-TB. Okay. So since XDR-TB has developed a drug resistance, there is a higher levels of mortality, or it kills more number of people. So multi-drug resistant TB strain that thought the two most powerful of first line drugs. Okay. Now, what causes a drug resistance? Because see, this is very important. You have to understand what exactly causes the drug resistance among people. Incorrect prescription is one reason, poor quality of drugs, erratic supply of drugs, and patient non-adherence to the drugs. Now, if patient is non-adherent to the prescription provided by the medical professional, and that would lead to the drug resistance. And erratic supply of drugs will also lead to the drug resistance, incorrect prescriptions, and poor quality of drugs. So this is all about the Mycobacterium tuberculosis and the new discovery with respect to diagnosis of mutations in DNA, MDR-TB and XDR-TB. The next article is, this article is being continuously in news. So this is with respect to the proposed oil refinery project. Okay, this is a proposed oil refinery project in the coastal district of Maharashtra, in Ratnagiri district of Maharashtra. Actually, this is a multi-billion dollar project. Okay, this is actually a multi-billion dollar petrochemical refinery project. Okay, so because of it is a capital intensive project, and government has been saying that it provides employment to the people, provides employment to the people. However, the people have been protesting that, there are several reasons the people have been protesting the project, believing that it will create a much needed employment for the people in the Ratnagiri district of Maharashtra in the Konkan region. So we will try and understand the Konkan region as well. So however, others have been opposing, they have been voicing concerns about its impact on the environment. There will be a huge impact on the environment, and apart from that, the local communities livelihoods and land rights will also be at stake if this project is being implemented. And they're saying that they don't want this petrochemical refinery, multi-billion dollar petrochemical refinery in their district, because it contaminate water, it contaminate or pollute food, and it impacts the environment, and it also impacts the you know the fragile ecosystem. Please understand the Konkan region is ecologically very sensitive region. Okay, it is located in the Western Ghats. Okay, it is located in the Western Ghats, and it is ecologically very sensitive, and with several species of flora and fauna are endemic to the area. Okay, so several species endemic, they are available, or they are living in that particular area. They are located, so they are just, you know, habit, their habit is located in that particular area. So apart from agriculture related to cashew, paddy plantation, a part of the landscape, fishing is critical to the local economy. The concern is that this ecosystem will be disrupted. These are all the list of concerns which have been raised by the locals. Because of these reasons, they have been protesting against the project. Now understand, the Konkan is actually a biodiversity hotspot. Okay, so this is actually a biodiversity hotspot. Okay, this region is very rich in biodiversity, and it is one of the most prosperous belt of the region. It is one of the most prosperous belt in the state of Maharashtra, and it is also home to famous Alfonso mango and other produce. And the western coastline, Ratnagiri district is located on the western coastline of the state of Maharashtra, and it is also home to innumerable beaches, and they are mostly unexplored and underexplored. You know, so rains are also abundant in this area because it is located across the Western Ghats, and farmers are in this area are rich. They have a land, unlike the farmers in Vidarbha or Marathwada region. This is generally a drought affected or drought hit area. So unlike Vidarbha or Marathwada, this region is actually, the Ratnagiri district is actually the, a prosperous area or prosperous region rich in agriculture. So they even managed to do well. Even the state does not extend loan waiver scheme for the farmers in the region. Okay, so the Konkan itself contribute 41 percentage of Maharashtra's GDP. This is a so prosperous state, and agriculture has been thriving. So therefore, environmentalists and local communities have been voicing concerns about such a project, and that would pollute the environment and impact the local livelihoods of the people. Okay, now apart from this agriculture, coastal fishing is also a major source of livelihood for the people. Okay, now it is a primary source of income for most of the Koli and Konkani Muslim communities who are living in this area, and they generally harmoniously live together. The fishing communities, unlike their farmer counterparts from the region, are only marginal landholders. And with this project underway, the fish folk who face the maximum risk, the fish catch would gets impacted. They may migrate, so they may migrate to other regions. Okay, because pollution and lack of enough fish catch, and this will also impact their livelihoods, and without any reasonable compensation. Now it is important for us to understand the Konkan region, where it is exactly located. The Konkan region is located, this is actually all the Konkan coast. Okay, right from Gujarat to Maharashtra, that also includes Goa also. Okay, now after the Konkan coast, you can see the Malabar coast. Okay, this is Malabar coast. Malabar coast is for Kerala. Okay, Kerala coast. And apart from the Malabar coast, you can also see the Coromandel coast. Okay, so Coromandel coast, generally Tamil Nadu coast is called as Coromandel coast, and Andhra coast is called as Sarkar coast. Okay, Sarkar coast, and this is Odisha's coast is Utkal coast. So this is all about today's important and relevant news articles. Okay, so thank you.